Pinegrow makes it easy to display custom fields from any source, whether it's from ACF, Metabox, Carbon Fields, or any other custom field tool. This video shows you 3 ways that you can get custom field data, and it shows you a special case where you might want to create a Mailto or a telephone link using data stored in a custom field. Here we are inside one of our employee posts. As you can see, I've added 3 custom fields using 3 different tools. I've added a drop-down field for favorite guitar using Carbon Fields, which is free and open source. With the Metabox plugin, I've added a text field for telephone number, and with ACF, I've added an email address field. With our employee post template, I've added placeholders for each of those fields just like I did with author and departments. Before I start using Pinegrow to display that field data on our templates, let's take a peek at what's happening under the hood. In its simplest form, each of those fields is stored in the WordPress database as a post meta field. To get that data, we either use the native WordPress get post meta function, or we can use a wrapper function provided by each of the custom field plugins. Those wrappers usually take care of things like sanitization, formatting, and just making life easier. For example, ACF uses a get field function, Metabox uses a function called rwmb get value, and Carbon Fields uses carbon get post meta. Now that I've shown you what's happening, let's start adding WordPress actions to make these placeholders grab data from our custom fields. We'll start with the telephone number. For this, I'm going to demonstrate the most basic WordPress get post meta function using Pinegrow's smart field action. All I need to do is add the action to my placeholder data, tell it the name of the field ID, and tell it that I want to replace the content of this placeholder with the field data. I can even click this little code button to show you exactly what PHP code is getting written to the template file when we do this. Now I'll save my template file and export it back to my project. When I refresh the page, you can see that the template is pulling the telephone number from the custom field and it's overwriting the placeholder I added to the Pinegrow project. I'm not limited to overwriting the content though. When I click on the edit dropdown in the smart action, you can see that we have a lot of other options. We can replace the content with the element or the entire element itself. We can also use the custom field to replace an image, which takes a few extra steps on the back end. We can even use custom fields to replace styles, element attributes, links, and classes. This gives us all sorts of flexibility in how we can use custom fields to affect our designs and content. Also, remember that this checkbox below the edit field lets us wrap this entire thing in an if statement, so that the element gets hidden if there's no data in the custom field. I showed you how to do that with the author, tags, and department fields when we created this template in a previous lesson, so I'm not going to go over it again here. For this next field, we'll use the ACF get field function to show the email address we stored as a custom field. Just like we did with the phone number, we'll select the placeholder data and attach the post field smart action. I'll open the code window so you can see that it's defaulting to the WordPress get post meta function. However, by clicking the ACF checkbox, it changes the code to use the ACF get field function. For simple text fields, this doesn't seem like a big change, but for more complex field, ACF's get field function is a much cleaner way to get and show the field data. Once again, I'll come back to the page and refresh it so you can see that it's pulling the email address from our custom field. I'm going to stop for 1 minute and point out that we probably want to add links for each of these fields. Remember though that email addresses and phone numbers are formatted differently from URL links, and they use Mailto and tell as part of the target. I'll get back to how we handle this in a minute. For now, we're going to use one other method to get our custom field data. As we did before, I'll select the placeholder where I want it displayed, but this time I'm going to use a functions global smart action, which lets me add a custom function to the template. I'll click on the function dropdown to say custom code, and here I'll enter a line of PHP code that echoes the output from the carbon get the post meta function. And again, when we refresh the page, you'll see that it's pulling the data from the custom field to replace the placeholders in Pinegrow. You might be wondering whether Pinegrow's new live data preview feature can help you here. As of March 2024, the post field smart action does not integrate with the WordPress API, so it isn't going to show you the custom field data in your preview. Pinegrow is planning to add live preview capabilities to more smart actions, so I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't start working in the next version or two. However, one thing to remember is that each field needs to be configured in the custom field plugin to allow it to be shown in the REST API. This is something that's not enabled by default in most custom field plugins. Now, let's get back to the topic of adding custom fields as links. Adding a normal link is a piece of cake. I'll transform this email address span to a link by right-clicking on it and choosing the anchor element. Then I'll come to the post field smart action and say add field. I enter the field ID where the URL is stored, and I tell it that I want to edit the link. Now when I refresh the page, you can see that the email address is now a link. But wait, look at that URL. That's not what I want. When I inspect the link, I can see that it's just the field data inside an href attribute without the Mailto protocol appended to it. When you think about this, it makes sense. Normally, you'll have a full URL with a protocol identifier that you just need to plop into your href attribute and you're done. In this case, though, we want to display just the email address, and we also want to link to it, which requires prepending the protocol. And here is where we start wrestling with the visual builder. You see, in code, it's a simple matter to just add the protocol with a few characters. But how do we do that in Pinegrow? Remember, Pinegrow doesn't know or care what kind of field data we're grabbing or what kind of link we're making. It's just making a standard link for us, since that's what we need 90% of the time. To change that, we need to take a few extra steps. First, we need to come back to our post field smart action and change it to a regular WordPress action by clicking on this icon. After clicking OK in the dialog box, I now have a little more control over what I can do with the link field. Now here's where the magic really happens. You see this append to attribute field? I'm going to change that from the default of no to yes without space. Then I'll come down to the element properties panel in the href attribute and I'll add my Mailto protocol. That append to attribute setting will tell the code to append the contents of our custom field to whatever is already in the attribute field. And when we look at the code preview, you can see that's exactly what it's doing. With the option disabled, it uses the custom field as the only thing inside the href attribute, but with it turned on, the custom field is added after whatever we manually put in there. Now, to show you that it's working, I'll save and export this template and we'll refresh the post on our demo site. When I hover over the address, you can see that the email address is now being created properly. And when I view the code, you can also see the same thing. Pretty clever, huh? Once I understood how to do this, it all made sense and I appreciate the flexibility it gives me. But it's not the most intuitive thing in the world though, and it cost me a few hours of stress and support tickets, which is why I'm including it here.